Today on Public Eye News, the Wisconsin Senate votes to double reckless driving penalties, and later a SpaceX rocket explodes minutes after launch from Texas.
Later, Brad Seaborg will have your weather for the week, and Michael Cudahy will have your sports update. Hello, I'm Kenzie Herod.
And I'm Colin Metzger, and this is Public Eye News. A Michigan U.S. District Judge sentenced a Michigan man to 10 months in prison yesterday. The man pleaded guilty to 2 hate crime charges for intimidating and attempting to intimidate people protesting in support of Black Lives Matter. Another man, Kenneth Pylon, age 62, was also sentenced by Judge Thomas Ludington. Pylon accused of calling and making threats against Starbucks employees wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts. Pylon also threatened to kill black people and pleaded guilty to placing a noose inside a vehicle with a note that read, "An accessory to be worn with your BLM t-shirt. Happy protesting," end quote. Currently, Pylon is sentenced to a 1-year supervised release. And in Wisconsin, a bipartisan bill that received final approval from the Wisconsin Senate yesterday would double penalties for reckless driving. The bill heads to Governor Tony Evers for approval. Evers has voiced his support for other legislation, creating harsher penalties for irresponsible driving and carjacking. Under the bill, fines and forfeiture ranges would increase to a maximum of $400 for a first offense and $1,000 for a subsequent offense. Offenses that could cause bodily harm would rise to $4,000, and reckless drivers could face up to 6 years in prison.
U.S. Border Patrol agents in Warroad, Minnesota, responded to an emergency call about 9 men who were stranded in a sub-freezing bog after attempting to cross illegally from Canada to the U.S. The agents used special equipment, including protective suits, to rescue the group. After receiving medical treatment, the men were taken into immigration custody. Yesterday, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said, quote, "This incident highlights the dangers and risks associated with illegal border crossings. We urge individuals to follow proper immigration processes and not put their lives at risk by attempting to cross the border illegally," unquote. And a 6-year-old girl, Kinsley White, and her parents were shot by their neighbor in Gastonia, North Carolina. The homeowner, 24-year-old Robert Louis Singletary, opened fire after the children went to retrieve a basketball that had rolled into his property. Kinsley was grazed by a bullet on her left cheek and has been treated and released from the hospital, according to her family. Her father, Jamie White, who rushed to her aid, was shot in the back. A neighbor, Jonathan Robertson, recounted the incident, saying, quote, "Singletary, who had yelled at the children on several occasions since moving to the neighborhood, went inside his home, came back out with a gun, and began shooting as parents frantically tried to get their kids to safety," unquote. The motive for the shooting remains unclear, and the investigation is ongoing. It's estimated that there are about 2 million livestock farms in the United States, which makes for a lot of manure. One company in England found a green solution to that stinky problem. CBS's Ian Lee reports from Cornwall.
7-year-old James is the future of his family farm, and he's also shoveling the farm's future.
It is a form of liquid gold, isn't it? Because you can't do much without slurry. It's an incredible form of fertilizer.
That slurry, or liquid cow patties, are powering this English farm.
The power of poo.
Cow waste gives off harmful methane. Instead of leaking it into the atmosphere, it's captured and turned into fuel. Cornwall company Benneman created the system to capture and process the gas.
The bottom layer is the dirty gas, the upper layer is the processed gas.
That's correct, yeah.
How much gas can you produce in a day?
In a day, we can produce half a ton.
That's enough to run this New Holland tractor for about a week.
Well, we call it the T6180 methane power, but my children call it the cow fart tractor.
Scientists estimate livestock are responsible for 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions.
Dairy and cows have been sort of demonized for destroying the ozone layer, and that's absolutely wrong, because in fact what we're doing here is we're promoting dairy as a way of reducing fossil fuel usage.
The next step is developing a methane-powered generator to take the farm completely off the grid.
Milking, lights, the whole bang, like it'll all be run off poo.
And you have a new appreciation for the poo too?
Yes, I do. Before, when you're in here cursing it and moving it around, now you still curse a little bit, but you just think of the greater good, don't you? Because it's doing amazing things.
The stench of going green never smelled so good. Ian Lee, CBS News, Cornwall, England.
Don't touch that dial. Brad Seaborg will have your weather, and I'll be back with your national news after this break.
Michigan Out of Doors Television has always been about promoting and preserving the outdoor lifestyle. Passing on the love of the outdoors is what we aim for on every one of our 52 episodes a year. Whether it's in the woods or on the water, Michigan Out of Doors TV travels this great state from the west end of the UP to the Detroit River and everywhere in between. Join us each week as we highlight this grand old state right here on your local PBS station.
Tonight at 9 on WNMU-TV.
Welcome back. I'm Brad Seaborg with your weather update. Taking a look at our roof cam behind me, we've got some cloud cover over our academic mall. A little bit of rain earlier, but it's still some early spring days. Taking a look around the UP as it is covered in clouds, bringing some lower temperatures. Starting off in Houghton, 34 degrees, Ironwood, 35 degrees. A little bit of precipitation down in the south, 38 in Iron Mountain with some rain, and 46 in Menominee. Over on our east end in Escanaba, 38 with still more cloud cover, 38 in Manistee, 37 in Sault Ste. Marie, and back in Marquette, it is 36. Taking a look at our current conditions, currently cloudy, 36 degrees, winds out of the east at 11 miles an hour, barometric pressure 29.94 inches and falling. Looking ahead to tonight, we will get some rain, low of 38, winds out of the southeast at 9 miles an hour. Tomorrow it'll be mostly cloudy with a little bit of rain, high of 49, low of 37, winds south-southwest at 13 miles an hour. Taking a look ahead into the weekend, on Saturday it'll be 39 with some rain, low of 30 as well. Sunday, high of 38 with some cloud cover, low of 30. Monday, high of 40, a little bit warmer, and we will get the sun peeking through a little bit, low of 31 there. That's all I've got for weather. Back to you at the news desk.
Thanks for that weather update, Brad. A rocket exploded over Texas today and crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. SpaceX, the owner of the new rocket, launched the rocket in hopes of lapping around the world and crash landing in the Pacific near Hawaii. Images of the rocket showed that several of the 33 main engines were not firing as the rocket climbed from the launch pad. The total flight should have lasted about an hour and a half, but ended just after 4 minutes. Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX and chief engineer, in the weeks leading up to the flight, gave a 50-50 odds that the spacecraft would reach orbit, but in a tweet stated that it was an exciting launch and there was a lot to learn. SpaceX has plans for more test flights in the effort to use Starships to launch satellites into orbit and then put people on board. And a bill passed by the Republican-led House today would bar federally supported schools and colleges from allowing transgender athletes whose biological sex assigned at birth was male to compete on girls' or women's sports teams. Supporters state that the bill is necessary to ensure competitive fairness. The House action follows at least 20 other states who have imposed similar limits on trans athletes at the kindergarten through 12th grade level or collegiate level. And the sponsor, Representative Greg Stube, stated that the integrity of women's sports must be protected. Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal claims Republicans are cruelly scapegoating transgender children to score political points. The bill is not expected to move past the Democratic-led Senate and Democratic President Joe Biden. And Congress is running out of time to raise the country's debt limit to pay for the bills it has already passed. Failure to do so could have a big impact on the U.S. economy. Nicole D'Antonio has more details from Capitol Hill.
America has a $31 trillion debt, and Washington is on the clock.
Congress has until sometime this summer to raise the debt limit or have the country default on its debt for the first time in history.
We are introducing the Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy introduced a plan Wednesday that would raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion or through March of next year, whichever comes first. But it would prohibit the implementation of President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, and it would put in place work requirements for programs such as Medicaid and SNAP.
House Republicans are taking action to lift the debt limit, to limit government spending, save taxpayers money, and grow the economy.
Speaker McCarthy wants to vote on the bill next week, but he can only afford to lose 4 GOP votes and still pass the bill. Right now, it's not clear if he can get enough votes. Some Republicans, like Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona, say they want to see more cuts before they'll vote yes, while Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett says he won't support any plan to raise the limit, adding he's prepared to go over the cliff.
Meanwhile, the White House insists Congress needs to raise the limit with no strings attached.
Our position continues to be to not negotiate over default. This is something that is the responsibility, the obligation of congressional members. They were able to do this 3 times in the last administration.
Even if McCarthy can get his plan through the House, it is dead on arrival in the Senate. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
After this break, we'll be back with your sports update. Stay tuned.
Consumers today want a lot more information on just where their food is coming from and what's involved in bringing it from farm to fork. America's Heartland gives urban viewers an inside look at modern agriculture, your chance to meet the men and women on farms and ranches who play an essential role in delivering food, fuel, and fiber to our nation and the world. Real people, real stories on America's Heartland.
Coming up next.
Welcome back. 4 days ago, the Miami Heat were able to steal home court advantage from the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 1 of their best-of-7 series, 130-117. Last night, the Bucks started to look to retake home court with a Game 2 win of 138-122. The Bucks were up 26 at halftime and were in control for much of the game, only being outscored in the fourth quarter. And all that was done without arguably the best player in the NBA, being Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sorry about that last name pronunciation. Brooks Lopez led the team in scoring, with Drew Holiday scoring 24, one less than Lopez did, with Pat Connaughton coming off the bench to score 22 points. Holiday also had 11 assists, with Joe Ingles coming off the bench as well, making five threes and all but one of his 7 shots. In fact, the last time the Bucks trailed in the game last night was with 10 minutes and 31 seconds left in the first quarter. Now turning our heads to the NHL playoffs, the Florida Panthers literally pummeled the Boston Bruins in their 6-3 win at TD Garden. There were 7 misconduct penalties last night, all with less than 2 minutes left in the third period, including former Red Wing Tyler Bertuzzi, who was one of 2 players to have 14 penalty minutes, with a total of 92 penalty minutes in the game. The game was tied at the end of the first 2 periods, but Florida scored 4 consecutive goals in the third, with Taylor Hall giving the Bruins their 3rd and final goal of the night. The Boston Bruins had just one, if not the greatest regular season in NHL history, and are looking to break the streak of President Trophy winning teams losing in the first or second round, with the last President Trophy team to win the Stanley Cup being Chicago in 2013. And now to break the trend of tied series, the Carolina Hurricanes are now leading the New York Islanders 2-0 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Hurricanes took a 2-0 lead early in the second period, but Kyle Palmieri and Matthew Barzal both scored to make the game tied entering the third. Then Minnesota native Brock Nelson would score to give the Islanders a 3-2 lead that would only last for about 3 minutes, as moments right after I turned the game on, longtime fantasy hockey defenseman of mine, Jacob Slavin, decided to score one of the most incredible goals of my life, shooting from behind the net, banking the puck off of Ilya Sorokin's back and into the Islanders' net to tie the game at 3 apiece. And Jesper Fast then scored really fast, well, not really, 5 minutes and 6 seconds into overtime, but he got his first goal of the playoffs to give the Hurricanes the series lead, and to continue their series lead, and they'll play Game 3 in New York tomorrow. Back to stories.
Thank you for the sports update, Michael. If you've had a Facebook account since May 24, 2007, you may be eligible for a share of $725 million privacy settlement that parent company Meta has agreed to pay. The settlement revolves around a lawsuit alleging that Facebook allowed users' personal information to be accessed by Cambridge Analytica, a firm that supported Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Users can apply online or by mail.
And that's all the time we have for you today on Public Eye News. I'm Colin Metzger.
I'm Kenzie Harrod.
And we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was produced by WNMU-TV, Northern Michigan University Public Television, in studios located in Elizabeth and Edgar Hardin Hall.